Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. Just got off the phone with Tom De Dorlodot. Most of you, I'm sure, know who he is. He's been on the show 2 full times, and then I've had him on for a few of those little pre-X-Alps and post-X-Alps snippets. He has competed in what I certainly think is the greatest game on earth, the Red Bull-Alps, 9 times. Incredibly, he got started in 2007, hasn't missed one since his very early days. He was a teenager in his first one, and he's been going hard ever since and getting better and better and better. We had a fantastic flight, which we'll talk about in this show, coming off the Col after rounding Mont Blanc in last year's race, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in this year's one. I was quite surprised to see that he'd signed up for his 10th because of, again, I think most of you saw this, he had a pretty horrible accident about a year ago up in Norway, learning how to kite-ski. He was getting ready for an expedition. He wanted to kite from the south point to the north point of Greenland, a big expedition, and he's done a lot of kiting and, of course, a ton of paragliding, but he hadn't done any kite skiing, so he was doing it the right way. He had an instructor and a buddy, and they were starting to figure it out, and then went against, I think the main takeaway here was going against instinct. He was the one that you've heard this advice that he's given us in one of the shows earlier on. If there is doubt, there is no doubt. And he certainly had some doubt going into this day. It was really gusty and turbulent, not very nice conditions, but the instructor thought that he could handle it. And just as he was setting up, a big gust came through, and I'll let him tell the story, but things went super sideways. He's had a very rough year. He's had 9 knee surgeries since the crash, and has lived a good portion of this last year on antibiotics, which of course is really hard on the body. But he's, for the most part, maintaining optimism and staying positive and fighting really hard, and he's still hoping he can make the race. But the clock is certainly ticking as we get into March. There's not much time left, and as you'll hear in the show, there's been quite a bit of doubt whether he could even keep his leg. And so things were looking pretty good in the last few weeks, and we signed off on a pretty optimistic note. And then the next morning I got a voice recording from Tom that he took the bandages off later that day after we chatted, and the infection, which is something they've been fighting since the beginning, is back. So the future's pretty opaque still, but he's fighting hard. I think you're going to find this an incredibly inspiring story, especially if you've been hurt and gone through an accident, which most of us have, or you have a friend who is or was. Just all aspects of it, the fear side of it, the mental side of it, the healing side of things, how it affects your family. We got into a lot of places here that are inspiring, interesting, hard, but Tom articulates it better than just about anybody. So, without further delay, please enjoy this great chat with Tom De Dorlodot. And just one thing about the sound is I have 3 or 4 shows in the can right now, all on one micro SD card, which crashed on me yesterday as I was recording this opening on that card. And so I'm trying to recover all that, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So we'll be using the Riverside platform, which is what I use to record these shows, for my sound. Using my sound is on professional gear on my end, and the Riverside's just for my guest. So if the sound isn't up to snuff on my side, that's the reason. I apologize, but these are too good of shows to just toss, so I wanted to use them. Enjoy. Tom, we just had a nice conversation before we started recording here. We've got a lot to talk about, but it's great, wonderful to see you in such good spirits. You've had a heck of a year, bud, and it's almost been a year. So I'd love to talk to you about your your accident and just what's happened in the last little bit. But first of all, just hey man, good to see you. It's been a
It's
while.
great to see you. Same here, man. I've kind of missed the paragliding family for the last month. I've been in a cave here, trying to survive
Yeah,
after the accident, and yeah, I'm coming back to life. It's great to catch up with you, man.
it's good to see you, my friend. The one of the last time, I guess, is maybe the last time I saw you was we had a really cool little flight together in the last race. Did some fun filming of you. We had a nice hike up at the Col and
Yeah, man.
down into Italy. That was a lot of fun. A little wild there, a little bit wild
That
air
was,
before we.
I think this is one of the flights where I remember arriving on takeoff. It was, yeah, after what, 4 or 5 days of X-Alps or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I arrived on top and I was like, oh shit, we're on the lee side. It's coming from the side. It's coming strong. And, you only had 30 minutes or something, and then you had another call or something. So yeah, but it was great flying with you and struggling in those shitty conditions. But
Yeah,
yeah, I could make it
I mean,
out at the end.
you handled it like a boss. I mean, remember, I don't know if you remember, there's just so much going on in the race, but I had been at that coal. What is it called? What was that coal called? It was one of the
Petit
trip
Saint-Bernard.
lines. Yes,
Petit Saint-Bernard, yeah. Mm.
Saint Bernard, and we were hiking up, and we were kind of. You said it. I was like, are we on the right side here? Because it was
Yeah,
later in the afternoon, and we were kind of going up on the east side because that's where everybody else had been. But it was a little bit later in the day, and it wasn't very nice at the launch. It was kind of cross and weird.
it was a
And
mistake. Actually, all the guys that came after me, they were like almost an hour behind, and they caught me because they
oh,
took off on the
really?
other side. Yeah,
I didn't
they
know
saw
that.
they saw that conditions were shitty on my side, and they took off on the other side. So Donini and all those guys, and they caught up with me, and we landed just before Monte Rosa. But yeah, it was a ride, like it was a sketchy ride in strong wind. Yeah, one of those moments in X-Alps were like, a bit on the edge, but it worked out. And actually, really, I think that it really helped. Yeah, let's not tell anyone, but I think it helped that you were there because I remember we were pinned there. We couldn't move in the wind, and then we
Yeah.
escaped to the next ridge, and again, we couldn't move much, and there was no conditions.
Yeah,
It
but
was flying in
you say we shouldn't
turbulences.
tell anybody, but you made all the moves. It was really, you launched first, and I was kind of struggling there, and you just bossed it out of there, and then holy shit, dude, we were on the deck. I couldn't believe you
Mm,
squeaked through there. Both of us
we were
did.
really
I
on the
just kept
deck.
thinking, oh, I'm gonna land. I'm gonna land. Oh, there we go. We came through, and by the time you got down to the big junction, you really had it. We kind of surfed that for a long time. And then I looked
Yeah,
down at my clock and said, oh, I got to be on the ground to do this live thing. And so
yeah.
I landed. And the next time I looked, you were a long way down course line. So, I mean, you made it work. I was going to ask you about that. We're getting sidetracked, of course, on our favorite subject,
No
which is
worries.
the X-Alps. But, it was really different for me to be doing that race from that perspective because that day especially, I was there, I spent the night there, and the next morning,
Hmm.
Patrick and Damien came through first, and actually Powell came through first. I missed him, but the other guys, and it was just a windy, kind of ratty, not a very nice day. And, again, I'm going to wait and film the next guy rather than going
Yeah,
with these
yeah,
guys. It was interesting in a very different frame of mind for that whole race. When it was
for sure.
spicy and nasty, which it often was, people often thought, oh, the weather was so good in that race. It was good for you guys, but it was often, especially that leg of the race. Once you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
got around Mont Blanc, it was pretty rowdy, man. I mean, that day that Damien went huge, it was really windy at the peak tops. I mean, it was blowing 60 kilometers an hour in places.
No, no, it
It's
was
pretty spicy. And
during the whole race actually. But I think I know where you're going. Like if you're in the race, you have that switch, and then you get into that race mode, and you get through those conditions, and then you look back and you're like, oh, I would have probably not fly if it was a normal day, or if I wasn't in the comp. And most of the days were like that in the X-Alps. So I totally understand that you were,
it was
taking it
really,
a
I
little bit
didn't enjoy
easier.
it. It was interesting. I mean, and that flight with
Yeah.
you was one of the rowdier flights I did. And when I landed, I was kind of, ooh. And then I thought, man, if I was in the race, that would be just totally normal. It would have been fine. Like you did. You just
Yeah,
went
yeah.
through. But I mean, we took some hits going down through that canyon, and I was really uncomfortable. It was just a very, and I know that if I'd been in the race, it would have just been great.
Yeah,
This is what you're doing.
No, for
It's a
sure,
weird
yeah.
thing, huh?
And I think that's I don't know, for me, like this race, I came into the race 2 years ago with one thing in mind, was to say, well, I don't want to get hurt. I want to enjoy. I want to go to the end. Obviously, I want to do a good result, but I was not ready to risk it all. Like I
Yeah.
was taking some margins. The good thing was that and I think especially for this race in this type of conditions, I was flying a glider that is quite compact, quite safe, and really fast. And I'm a little bit heavy on my glider on this side of the glider, and that really helped for these kind of conditions. Because when it was windy, I could go against the wind. The glider was strong, and I have to say somehow like I could hear some of the pilots complaining a lot about the conditions, and it was rough, obviously,
Yeah.
but I never felt in total danger. Like kind of I felt that it was manageable. And maybe because also the year before I was in Pakistan, when you fly in those massive mountains and then it's like you when you fly in the Rockies and then you come to the Alps and everything seems a little bit easier, even if it's not, but you feel a little bit more,
Safe.
a little bit safer maybe.
Yeah.
But again, like, and guys like Kriegel and Damien and the guys in front, they were pushing through really, really shitty conditions on speed bar most of the time, when I needed to take some margin, I was taking it, and so, but that day I was coming from Interlaken. Imagine that. I was coming from Niesen that morning. So it was like,
what a
I think we did
day.
235K that day or something when we landed in Monte Rosa. It was fun because at the end of the day, so I did the X-Alps a few times, as you know, and at the end of the day, I knew where I was, and I knew a place where I stayed the year before, a nice little place. So I flew towards that. I landed in front of this little hut, spent the night there. The owner recognized me. I had a good polenta and stuff. And the next morning I knew exactly where to take off. So everything was kind of and also that day I made a move, and I think it's interesting to talk about it, is I was with the other guys in front, like I was with Donini, and I had 4 or 5 pilots in front of me. But that night I decided to go and land there, even though I could have gone to the next valley. And I know it's counterintuitive, and people say, no, you have to try to stay in front. But I knew the next day was difficult, and with lots of different options. The south options in the lakes and north options in the mountain and stuff. And I knew it was going to be a tricky day. And I knew it was not going to be about speed and being in front. So the next day I took off, and I took all my time, and I was on my phone in the air looking at the options, and who is doing well? They're doing well in the south. Oh, they're not doing so good in the north. And I was the only one, I think, that started with the south route and came back into the north route. If you look at my track, it's totally different than the other one. But I could really do that because I had people in front showing me what was happening. And at the end of the day, I was in front of all the group.
I wish I had your kind of patience in that race.
It's the first time I do it. I think I heard Kriegel saying something like that one day. It's they can go in front because I need to see what's happening. And it's at the end. Sometimes you're 20K in the back and you think, oh, they're gone. But they're not. It's the days are long. If you fly smart, you catch up with them easy. But for sure, if you can see what's happening in front, it's still a little bit stable. They're low. They're fighting. Well, you avoid it. And I mean, if everyone does that we wouldn't be really fast. But sometimes you have to be ready to slow down a little bit. I always say, if you want to be fast, you have to go slow sometime.
Yeah,
so
that's
interesting.
I always have that in that saying of yours. I always have in my mind.
Yeah,
you got to go slow sometimes. Yeah,
but I hope we get good conditions this year again. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be there. Like, really, like, probably not. So, I mean, I'm looking at my leg right now, and I still have the pins and stuff I can show you here.
Yeah,
like
you showed me that before. It doesn't that's not what you really want to see in February, late February.
No, and but the thing is, I subscribe. I had the accident in March, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to be fixed for next X-Alps, and it's an important one for me because it was going to be my 10th Red Bull X-Alps, or maybe it is going to be my 10th Red Bull X-Alps. So I'm still in contact with the APC, with the doctors at Red Bull and stuff, and we still think that if in a month we take the metal out and I can train like hell, I won't come with my best level, but maybe I'm safe to start, you know.
I love the
So we will
optimism, man.
see.
Good for you. Good for you.
But hey, I mean, let's be realistic. I think the chances are small, like very small. But hey, I'd like to be there. And if not, you know what? I'm gonna come with you and follow you guys and see what's happening, learn from the outsides, you know, get in front, get in the back, see who does what and how, and analyze it. And then I'll be back in 2 years, you know.
You know what? It was actually really a great learning experience for me to do what I did in the last one. You know,
I'm sure.
I think if I was your age, I would really be thinking that I could have done that and then raced this time. You know, at this point, I just really feel like I've checked the box, but my ski racing was like that. I had a really bad accident ski racing, when I had just made the US team and, you know, everything was on the up and up. And literally about 10 days later, I just totally destroyed my knee. And it was the first time it was my first big injury. You know, I mean, in ski racing, you're always getting little hurts, but it was a big one. I was out for the rest of the season. I didn't go to Europe for the World Cups and all the things that were planned. But for the first time, it allowed me to get away from ski racing. I mean, I was still training and coming back and all the plans were there, but it forced me to just watch tape and get away from it. And when I came back to the sport, I was so much faster because I had a big break. I got to, you know, when you're just doing it day after day after day after day, I don't know that you're shoveling in the right type of thing. I mean, you're getting really current, which is great, and you're flying really well, but it was just really interesting to see it from that perspective, to see what people were doing, to see what was working, what wasn't. And I think I got a perspective that if I was to do it again would really help me.
I'm sure. I'm sure
this kind of learning.
This is a little bit where I am now, you know, and I also think that's I really like when I look back at the content from 2 years ago. I really enjoy watching what you were doing there, you know, shooting the guys, flying, trying to explain to the mainstream, you know, who does what and how it works and stuff like that. And I think that's super interesting. And if I cannot race, I'll probably go there and try to fly with the pilots. You know, I haven't been flying for a year, you know, basically. Yeah. So get back in the air, trying to fly, trying to compete a little bit with those guys, just play around, you know. That'd be super cool. Maybe take a tent and sleep up there in the mountains and just enjoy, you know, coming back slowly. I think that's the wisest thing to do. But at the same time, this is my 10th Red Bull-Alps, you know, if I can go for it. And I'm still like, obviously if I go, I'm not going to run 90K a day, you know, but I would love to be there with the team, with all the friends that are there and stuff. So we'll see how it goes.
I mean, I think it's like Paul, right? Was it 2019 after he broke his leg? Yeah. And obviously it wasn't the same injury you're dealing with, but I remember talking to him afterwards. It helped his approach. You know, he had and same with Aaron remember in 2017, he had to pull out of the race. So when he came in 2019, he just decided, I'm not going to walk on the pavement at all. And he did really well. he had an awesome year. So I think you just, you know, you can kind of shift the perspective and shift the goal. Totally. And sometimes it can make you better. You know,
Gaspar, I remember Gaspar had knee problems and he only trained in a pool
in 2019
for months.
He crushed it.
And he was only swimming in a pool, you know, and training. And I'm like, I can, as soon as I can swim, I'll be training in the Azores, you know, at sea. I can spend my day swimming and so we'll see if I can come strong enough. But right now my leg pretty much disappeared. I have zero muscles down there. Like it's gone. Everything is gone and it takes time to come back. So we'll see. But I have the right support team around me, you know, and so we'll see how it goes.
Tom, let's rewind the clock a little bit here because you gave me the full perspective before we started recording, but the listeners don't. You had a great podcast in French recently that I saw a lot of the highlights and stuff on Instagram, and you went through it. I know you've told the story a million times. You must be sick of it, but what happened and what has this last 11 months looked like?
Yeah, so you know, I was I'm always keen to learn new things and stuff. So last year in March, I was preparing for an expedition. I wanted to cross Greenland, from south to north with a snow kite. So I'm a kiter, I've been kite surfing for many years. As you know, I sail a little bit too, so I've lived on a sailboat. I have some experience with kites and stuff, and I'm a decent skier. But I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, it's a long distance, it's a big adventure. I'm going to prepare, as one should, So I went to Norway, and with my friend, we hired the best snow kite instructor in the world. She's done many crossing in Antarctica. She's been all around the world and stuff. And so for a few days, we were training with her, learning a lot. It was really, you know, easy in a way. I'm a fast learner, but it felt natural and everything felt good. But then one day she couldn't come. She got replaced by someone else, by another instructor that I didn't know much, and the wind was really strong that day. And the thing is, I like in the morning, I was like, "Hey, are you sure we should go kiting? It's super strong. It's really gusty." And we decided to push it a little bit because we were going to go on a big adventure. We needed some training. We thought we were in a safe environment, kind of. But then, yeah, basically what happened is that the wind was really strong. We stopped near a hut to eat something, and I told him, "Hey, I think it's too strong, now we should pack and go back to the parking place. It's like an hour and a half with skiing. And the guy said, "Yeah, no, you really need to use your kite in those conditions to learn how it works. Don't worry, I'm next to you. I'm gonna help you, this and that." And I think I really should have listened to my intuition. I had a bad feeling. And anyway, he was there next to me. I thought it was safe. We pulled the line and the kite went crazy and I took off. Really got like, I don't know, like
Slingshot.
catapulted into the air. I flew maybe 20 meters, 30 meters or something. And then when I landed, when I crashed, my leg was smashed basically. My tibia and fibula were broken. Uh, my leg was on an angle of 30, 35 degrees, totally destroyed. And I got pulled by the kite for like another 80 meters, because with the shock, I almost lost it, and I was going towards rocks and stuff. It was in the mountains. And I was like, okay, now I remember thinking, now if I don't release, I'm going to die, So it's like, I finally found it and I released, but then it took another hour for the rescue to come on one of those ski, I don't know how you call it. Anyway, a motor, kind of a motorbike. Yeah, snowmobile. Yeah, there you go, snowmobile. And then they took me to the hospital. They had to straighten my leg. It was a nightmare. It was super painful. But it was not too bad. It was a broken leg. It was bad, but I was looking at maybe 5 weeks, like a surgery, and then 5 weeks, and then walking again, and then a year later taking the metal out. That was the plan. But they made a first surgery, and for whatever reason, I got infected. It happens 1 or 2% of the time. You can get bacteria, infection. It's a golden staph. It's those bacteria. They are very resistant because they live in hospitals. Basically, you catch them there because it was not an open wound. It was closed. So it's really during the surgery that the bacteria came in, and so a few weeks later we saw that it was infected. I had another surgery and I started antibiotics, and then 6 weeks later, when I stopped the antibiotics, the infection came back, and then it went on for a month. The problem is when you have an infection like a golden staph, the bone doesn't heal, so nothing is going the right way. It's super painful. It's pretty nasty. Like the scars, they don't close. It's bleeding and stuff like that, and then it just don't get better. And it can get worse, easily. So we were always trying to control it by doing surgeries and cleaning surgeries, and then taking more antibiotics and more antibiotics. And altogether, I had 9 surgeries over the course of 10 months. Yeah, so pretty much. God. So it was bad because every surgery, it's all right. You come back to the hospital, we put you to sleep. We open everything, we clean everything, we take more bone out, more of the tibia out. We close, we put some antibiotics inside, we close, and we hope for the best. And then 3 weeks later, when we stop the antibiotics, it comes back. And again, and again, and again. And the first two times, you're like, okay, well, this is okay, this is gonna work, but then the more surgeries you have, the less you believe that it's gonna work. But the doctors, they kept on believing, and they were like, okay, this is okay, this is a chronic disease now. Basically, the bacteria is in there. We cannot always clean everything, and we just kept on working on it, and also taking more antibiotics,
God, that must have been a
stronger
mental
antibiotics.
roller coaster for you. Or were you able to stay pretty positive through this whole process, or were you going
You know
crazy?
what? I have to be honest. It's been. I went into, like, it was dark.
I bet.
It was a dark place to be, because at the beginning, yeah, you're positive. You're like, me. I'm a positive guy. I'm like, hey, this is gonna be okay. We're gonna fix this. And then you start losing faith. And as soon as you lose faith, you're like, okay, why would I suffer so much physically and mentally to just come back to the same point in months? Because I was just coming back to the hospital, and we were just starting again. Reopen the wounds, surgery again, all the suffering, all the painkillers, all the morphine and shit, and then to see that after 2 weeks in hospital, you go back home, and then a week later the infection is back, and you have to fly back and start all over again.
But
And
these
the
are
the
also
hard part,
really, really hard things on a physical body. I mean, you're
yeah,
talking major surgery 9 times and antibiotics. I mean, you've been on antibiotics for almost a year.
yeah, and
Those
heavy
are
stuff.
hard
Like
things.
the first one was type of doxycycline, so it's kind of light. But then after, I had vancomycin through your veins, so you stay for 2 weeks in hospital, and the nurse comes 4 times a day to shoot you with vancomycin. So it's like,
Oh God.
and then all the painkillers. I think the worst part was probably the painkillers, because on some of the first surgeries after, it was a little bit lighter, but it was extremely painful. And they give you painkillers like morphine and stuff. And I'm as you know, I'm not a drug addict. I don't take any shit. I don't drink almost. So for me, I've never smoked. So I'm like, I came home to my parents, and in the middle of the night, woke up, and I was shaking, I was shivering, I was having
Ugh.
fever attack, and things like that. And I was a junkie. I
Well,
really
to
was. Like,
throw.
after weeks of taking painkillers and stuff, I was hooked. And that's super sketchy. That's not a place you don't want to be there. So I was. Then you get swing, like, you get mood swings. Like, one day you're all positive, okay, guys, it's gonna be okay, we're strong, we have the right team, the right people, and then the next morning, the pain is killing you. You didn't sleep, and you're like, okay, this is never gonna end.
Yeah.
So that was hard until, yeah, I mean, I started to seek for support, and I'm lucky, man. I have a beautiful family. My parents were very helpful. My wife, obviously, Sophia's been great. The kids, and also, I have to say, my partners. At Red Bull, we have what we call the APC, the Athlete Performance Center. And at the beginning, I didn't say anything. Like, I didn't complain. After the two first or the three first operation, I said to the guys, well, maybe now I need your help. So I contacted the APC, and I said, guys, I need your help. And Red Bull directly said, hey, Tom, anything you need, we're here. We're going to help you. So they put me in contact with their mental coach, and most importantly, they put me in contact with the right surgeons. And in Germany, there is one of the best hospitals in Europe to treat infection, and one of the APC head, one of the big doctor there, Elg Rippenhoff, is a master. Organized everything so that I could get the surgeries there, and Red Bull covered everything. So I flew to Germany, and then they took the matter into their hand, and from there it went better. We did another 3 surgeries, and we finally killed the beast. But I mean, we think that it's under control. I did a bone graft not long ago, and it's getting better. But I was at some stage, in a moment, in, like, yeah, at a certain point, I was really looking at some options, and maybe I should not like, I should have stayed positive and stuff. But at some point, I didn't believe in it anymore. Like, I was like, okay, we're not gonna kill this bacteria. So maybe we should rather cut my leg, and amputate, and then take it from there. And I start to watch YouTube videos. I start to talk to a mental coach about it. I was really, between you and I mean, really, I was prepared.
Mm.
I was
To lose
there.
your
I was
leg.
like, Yeah. I was, I've lost a finger, which is nothing, but it's like not that it's the same, but really, I was like, okay, if someone can take it, I can take it. I can take it. And I'll probably keep on pushing, I'll probably keep on with my career in a different way, it might even be an opportunity to inspire other people and stuff, but I'm not going to stop living, I'm just going to cut it and start over from here because I was seeing it as like the first day of my second life, because one of a sudden, okay, the infection is behind and now I can start building again,
Yeah.
because this infection
Just
was
not
just coming
not
back
go
and
around
coming
the
back
carousel
and I was
anymore.
not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really hard. And the doctor would say, no, we didn't lose faith and we were going to kill it. But I was really in a place where I thought, okay, well, we have zero control on this and nothing seemed to work at the time. So I was like, okay, now I have to look at options. And yeah, obviously, like if the infection would have come back in the last few weeks, that would have been really hard. But now it's been 2.5 months, 3 months without infection. It seems to be totally under control. My body can take it now. I'm not taking antibiotics, and now we're just waiting for the bone to heal. So yeah, we're
I'd love
getting
to
there.
hear about your family, not only your parents, who I know you're staying with them now, but your wife and your kids. What has this been for them? I mean, it sounds like you've got a great support system, but at the same time, this isn't your first injury. You've had some doozies. Obviously, this was the
Yeah,
worst by far, but uh, I my own wife. We were talking about my friend who died in the
yeah.
avalanche this spring. She's definitely asking, she used to think I was invincible. That really, she just didn't really worry about this kind of stuff, but she's changed a little bit. Now she's going, who are you going out with? Where are you going to
hmm
be, when I'm going into avalanche terrain and that kind of thing. It impacts the people we love.
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, Sophia is really strong. And I'm actually trying to think about like trying to take some altitude, and to answer a question in a way. But um, Sophia is really strong, and she's always been positive. We didn't know it was going to take so long, So you kind of take it day by day. It comes to a point where you're like, okay, well, here's another day. We're just pushing through and trying to recover from this, in a way it happened, I didn't have any accidents since I had my kids because I thought I was taking a lot more margins, and
Mm,
it's almost sad that it happens in a sport that is not my sport,
yeah.
also because I have really good insurances if I get hurt in paragliding. But so I would have probably get pretty rich, but that didn't happen. But but uh but no, just it was hard to have to put her through this because the thing is at the end, and we always think that if we have an accident that's our problem, but it becomes everyone's problem,
Yeah.
and when all of a sudden you realize, well, I'm dragging everyone in my troubles, because of probably my mistake, and so it was hard, but the family has been really really good, like I received a lot of support and a lot of love, and obviously, I think Sophie will be extra careful or will ask me to be extra careful. But even that, she's always kind of trusted me. But she will for sure ask me to listen to my intuition more, and get more
Mm.
tuned into it. But anyway, like I get to a point where I don't want to get hurt anymore. Like this is really, when you're young, and I remember like when you were skiing as a pro athlete and stuff, I'm sure that you knew, okay, well, I'm pushing, I break a bone here or there, this is part of the game, I'm just gonna go through this and stuff. But I'm almost 40 years old now, and I don't see the point of
Getting
it,
hurt sucks.
like yeah, it sucks. I don't want to stay in hospitals anymore. All of those days that I lost in hospitals, it's depressing. And I thought I could be walking with my kids on the beach, or I could be
Mm.
freediving somewhere, or I could be surfing, or I could be training, or I could be, if I had been a little bit more careful. All those projects, like I had a super packed year with cool travels, amazing adventures, and everything was canceled. And the hard thing is that I could never say to anyone, like the sponsor were like, okay, so you think that in May you're going to be okay and we can do this? Yeah. In May. Oh, easy. In May, I'll be good. And then the infection will kick back. And so
Oh,
I had to kind of learn that, things don't always go our way. And that's how life is. And, half of the thing that happened to us, we don't have control on it, and we just have to take it as it is. But in every of those difficult moments, there is something we can learn, and so I really try to be resilient. I read a lot of books about mental coaching, about, things like that, because I also give motivational speeches. And then I learned beekeeping online. I started beekeeping. I'm making honey now in the Azores. I planted trees. I learned about biology, about agroforestry, whatever I could do. I learned about AI. I read a lot of books. It's just all the things that I didn't take time to do in the past. I was doing it. One of a sudden, I was doing it. But just to answer your question, I think it's hard for the family, and it comes to this also. Is that at some point I was really struggling, and I was trying to get some help. And your friends will say, "Hey, call a psychologist, a mental coach, things like that." And I tried a few times. Some people gave me some names and numbers and stuff, but it didn't click. And in a way, I do think that we professional athletes, we work a little bit differently, maybe, than, I mean, everyone is different, but I think that for us, maybe for them it's more complicated to understand how we work, or I don't know. But I didn't find the right fit there. But then I thought, I was in the hospital bed, really struggling in Germany after 2.5 weeks in bed without moving, and I was like, okay, who can help me now? Because I have to get out of this place. And I thought about Karina Olekin. Karina used to be a Red Bull athlete. She was a professional skier and she was a base jumper. And sadly, she had a massive accident. She also lost friends and stuff before that, but she had a massive accident and she struggled with it for years. Also because she had an infection. And so I remember that and I thought, well, maybe I can find her number. I can contact her or something. So I sent her a message on Instagram. It's like, hey, Karina, you don't know me. I know you. I've been following what you do and stuff. And would you have time to call me or to talk? Because I'm going through a difficult time and I think you could help me. And the next morning she called and we had a wonderful conversation. She's a really strong girl, like amazing how strong she is. And she said a few things that really resonate with me. One was that she said, hey, until you didn't stop fighting, you didn't lose, It's not finished until you decide. You can tell the doctors that you're going to keep your leg, whatever they say, you're going to go through this. And this is the only way you're going out. Like if you abandon, if you give up, you're screwed. That's for sure.
So
You
keep
have
fighting.
to think positively. You have to stay strong. You have to go through this. The first thing that she said, and it helped. And then she said something that really, really helped me, was that she said, hey, Tom, you have kids, right? And I said, yeah, I have 2 kids. And she said, well, you know, don't forget that they're looking at you, they're looking up to you. They see how you react to challenges. They see how resilient you are, how positive you are. They see everything, and they're going to take you as an example when they're going to go through difficult moments in life, And then one of a sudden I realized everything that I had imposed to them, like all the negativity, the, sometimes you don't pay attention, but you're complaining in front of them, maybe more than what you should, things like that, and so I thought, well, it's true. It is an opportunity today. I have an opportunity to show them or to try to teach them how to react in front of adversity and how to try to stay positive, resilient, to see, an opportunity in every challenge. And that really clicked. It changed everything. Like I came home and I was like, all right, guys, we're going to kill the beast. We're going to make it together. We have to be, bounded. And so it was wonderful. And really, it really helped. And from there, the infection basically got under control and the pain got more manageable. I could sleep a little bit more. The kids were
I,
positive and,
I love that
then, yeah.
it gave you. It sounds like it gave you a perspective on accountability in a sense that was really powerful. For those of you listening, I'll have the link to her film. I'm almost positive it's called 6 Seconds to Joy. It's an incredible documentary. I mean, she just smashed herself, and it's a great documentary, and she's a lovely person. It was great that you were able to contact and make this contact with her. But I love that. I heard you talk about this on the podcast you did, the one that's in French, and it actually made a huge shift for me as well. I have to thank you for that, because I was also in a pretty dark place after losing my buddy, and
I can imagine.
It made me realize that, hey, and my daughter was really close to him as well. And it made me realize that, hey, I need to lead here. I need to show her that life's going to be fine. Life's going to be okay, that we can move forward on this. And it doesn't mean we need to forget him or leave him. We can carry him with us, but he would want us to behave better here,
exactly
when it comes to all this. And
totally.
it gave me accountability as well. Hey, she's just 7. I'm 52. I need to do a better job here.
Yeah, exactly. I was there. Like I was trying to speak to myself and say, Tom, get your shit together, because I don't say it's easy, but sometimes the easy way is to just get drunk and forget, or get wasted and negative and frustrated and aggressive. It is sometimes the easy way out, obviously. And also that sometimes that's what we learn. That's what we see on TV, in films, that's culturally what's accepted in a way, you should be sad and you should be, but no, hey, we can take it differently. And when you lose a friend like you did, and this is the hardest, thing that can happen to anyone, lose a member of your family or a friend, it's the same. I think we should allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to take the hit. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, but you know what? This is fine. We are men's or women's, but we can talk about the feelings that we have. We don't have to bury it. But then also we have a responsibility to keep on going. I take the X-Alps as an example sometimes in moments like this, this is rough and the weather is shit and you're under the rain and you've been walking for 90 k's and you don't want to walk anymore, but you go, you keep on walking, you're in the robot mode, you keep pushing. And eventually the next day, the weather is good and you get those perfect flying conditions. And then it's just a bad memory. But it's just about keep on going, you have to just keep pushing. Slowly, steady, and not sit there.
You had to
cry.
kind of take that on for your kids. Hey, this is it was interesting because when I heard you say that, like you said, it is hard, but it's also in some ways it was easy to just make a shift. Just what, tomorrow I'm getting up, I'm going to be different. I've gone through a lot in my life, as you have, I mean, this is my self-talk, because Gavin, you've been through a lot of shit, dude. You've been hurt. You've had a bunch of stuff. You've been in worse places, remember him, grieve, but not too much. Move on now. It's time. And that really helped me. And I think, like you said, when we were talking before, that's what my buddy would have wanted as well, and that's why I asked you about the family. As supportive as they have been, has there been any talk of, hey, maybe we should take up chess in the future? Is there any reluctance from them? You're still shooting for your 10th X-Alps here in June.
Yeah, it's again, like I learned from my mistake, and this was a mistake, I should have listened to my intuition. I'm a safe pilot. I know my sport, and I know where to stop. And I think I was a bit confused because I don't know the sport. This is not my specialty. It's no kiting. I was with an instructor. I felt protected and safe. And I think that he felt that he was with someone maybe special because I had a Red Bull helmet. This is sometimes it happens. They're like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. But I had no clue, Right. And I think that it's a shared responsibility. I'm not saying it's his fault or it's my fault or whatever. I'm just saying that, the whole situation it was bad. And it didn't feel right. And I should have known. I know I have to listen to my intuition. I know my intuition is based on my experience, and all the experience that I gathered all over those
This
years and stuff.
there's a wise guy named Tom De Dorlodot that once said, if there is doubt, there is no doubt.
Exactly, man.
You must have thought
Man,
about that a
I was
million times in the last year.
when I flew off, I knew I was going to break something. I was like, Tom, you've been there before. You know this, like, why did you listen to, the guy, and why didn't you just be you, be safe as you are always, and so anyway, I think, again, I read that somewhere the other day. It's like we have controls on some of the things that happens to us, but many of the things that happen to us, we have zero control on. It can be a health issue, it can be an accident, it can be losing a friend or losing your job or losing a sponsor. Some of the things that it's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault, but it's just shit happens. And this is life. And so on all those things that you don't control, you can always kind of look back and say, oh, I made a mistake or this or that, and try to, but anyway, it happened. And now the only way out is the way it's forward. It's like, how do I shift this? How do I take it as an opportunity to, and one of a sudden I realized, like, I was always kind of in the last 15 years, I was always in a hurry, like going from one expedition to the other, to a plane, to the next flight, to this, to that, Red Bull-Alps adventure, things that, my family name is Tom De Dorlodot, and I remember the guy from Cross Country Magazine called me Tom Do a Lot, like kind of twitch my name too, because I would never stop. And one of a sudden, like, you're forced to stop. You're forced to take some altitude and some distance and say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to fly for the next month. I'm not going to go anywhere. Now it's focus on family time. You can learn cooking because you've always wanted to learn cooking or beekeeping or read some books. And then I also realized one thing is that the world doesn't stop without us. You can sit somewhere for a few weeks and no one will realize. Like, we always think, and especially us sponsor athletes, we have that pressure, of producing content, of telling stories, and as I love to be a storyteller, and I love to try to inspire people or share the knowledge and stuff. But also, we have to be able to take some time off and disconnect. And it kind of forced me to do that. And to take some perspective on life, what is important, what is less important. Maybe I should spend more time with my good friends. Maybe I should enjoy the little things in life a little bit more, because all the things that we take for granted, and I know it's a classic, everyone that goes to hospitals and health problems, they'll tell you the same. We think we have 1,000 problems until we have only one, And when you have a health problem, one of a sudden, all these little problems, they're not problems anymore. You don't give a shit about it. Like, okay, this is not important. What is important is to be healthy and to be with the people you love, and, to do good things for friends and be there for family and stuff. So I'm just saying, like, it gives you perspective. And it teaches you a lot. So I'm not saying this happens for a reason. I don't know if it happened for a reason, but I'm just trying to make the best out of it now.
Good for you. I spent 3 days in the last race up at Tresime and Jürgen was with me, our safety director, who I've become really good friends with. Jürgen's a longtime mountain guide and has branched into other things that are helping support, his finances, obviously. But we had a really interesting talk one day. We were waiting for somebody to come through. I think you'd already gone through. I didn't see you there, but he was saying that a lot of his mountaineering guide, other guides, guides that he's worked with are really struggling in the Alps, partly because of climate change and the mountains are crumbling, and routes that have been routes for 50 plus years are not reliable, and they're killing people. And he was saying, that it's for these folks that have guided their whole lives, are suddenly finding themselves in these positions where they don't have much retirement. They don't have much of a security blanket. They're relying on their bodies, which are getting older and, not as resilient, not as durable. Has this last year, going through all this, has it changed potentially how you approach the future in terms of, like you said, your job really as a sponsored athlete is creating content, is doing this stuff. Is it scary? Is it make you nervous? Has it altered,
No, totally. I mean, and I'm going to be totally honest with you here. I've lost a few sponsors this year. I've lost Garmin, Garmin was a sponsor for more than 15 years. And I received an email one of a sudden, hey, Tom, we're changing the politics. Okay, we're not going to work together. This has nothing to do with your accident, which again, I don't hold any grudge or anything. Like I'm that type of guy. Like I had a good friend at Garmin for many years. He left, got replaced by someone, people change, politics, inside politics change, there's a lot of things, but obviously it got me stressed a little bit because then I'm like, oh, I'm not working with them anymore, and on the other side, I had sponsors like Red Bull calling me the next day of the accident or 2 days later and say, hey, Tom, you don't worry about anything. We have your back. We're here. It happens, athlete get hurt. We know the drill, we're going to help you. We're going to support you. We're not going to leave you alone and stuff. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, they're there. They have my back. They've been incredible. Partners like Advance. I called Advance and I said, hey guys, I couldn't work much this year. I feel kind of bad to send you my bill, because my invoice, because you guys are supporting me, but I haven't done much. And they said, Tom, this we knew when we signed the contract with you, we knew that this can happen, did happen. No worries, we're here. We're going to help you. It doesn't change anything. Most of my partners have been there. So that's great. Now, having said that, so this year I'm okay. But having said that, I'm going to turn 40 years old soon. And when I was 21 and starting, I was like, hey, if I make it to 40, I felt like 40 was being a grandpa,
Right.
and I'm going to be 40 years old, and my friend Horacio is 42 or 43, and we talk about this. We're like, hey, what's next for us? What should we do? And we both feel that we still have a lot to give. But maybe now we can start thinking about sharing the knowledge, about exactly what you've done with your book and things like that. I think this is great because you gather experience for all those years, and then all of a sudden you think, hey, what about sharing it? What about trying to do things a different way? So during my time in hospital and at home, I developed a lot of, I do a lot of motivational speeches and keynotes here in Belgium and in France, in Switzerland, for big companies, to try to inspire their people, and that worked quite well. So now I have more of that, and it pays decently. So I'm trying to find ways. I also, I didn't tell you yet. I think I sent you a photo, but I could raise some money and buy a new boat.
Yeah.
So we have a new sailboat now. It's a aluminum 45-foot monohull, beautiful expedition boat that is in the Azores now, getting prepared for next year adventure and stuff. So the dream job for me in 5 years' time, let's say, would be to be kind of Captain Tom or something like that, and inviting pro athletes on board and helping them to realize their dream, or pilots who have 2 or 3 weeks per year, they can escape and they want to go wild. They want to go to New Zealand or Pakistan or the Alps or do some BV flying, maybe have a team of people like that are self-minded and they really want to learn some stuff. Maybe I'll do that. I think I would like that. But I'm going to take less risk. Yeah. And actually I'm going next week to the Bahamas with the Red Bull athletes. So every year we have a training week with the Red Bull athletes. So all the guys that fly, so it can be the base jumpers, the skydivers. I'm gonna, most of those guys, and many of them are your friends too. So you know all those guys, but the speed riders and the paragliders and stuff. And the team, they asked me to make a speech and a keynote about risk management, which is maybe I'm not the best person to talk about it, but in a way I have some experience. So, and so I'm gonna prepare that, and this is where I see myself in the future, is to me maybe the old guy that can help a little bit the younger generation to grow and avoid the mistakes that I've done. Maybe in a way.
It's interesting. We talk about this with, the best mistakes are the cheap mistakes, right? The ones that don't break you for a year, but it's hard it's hard to navigate risk without making mistakes. I'm
Yeah.
just hearing your story, getting hurt in a sport that wasn't really yours. I have the same story with mountain biking, never to the extent, but I went over the handlebars on my mountain bike before the 2017 race and had surgery in October, and it was a real race. I did the hyperbaric chamber and I did everything you possibly could to get so I could still do the X-Alps. But, and again, I'm not trying to compare. Your accident's way worse, but I couldn't go slow on a mountain bike, and I'm not very good on a mountain bike. So I basically just decided I'm not mountain biking anymore. I just had to make that decision. If I can't go out and go slow on a mountain bike, then I shouldn't do this. And because the way I think about my abilities is sometimes beyond where I actually am. So with paragliding, that's my sport. I can do it. With skiing the same way. Pretty much guarantee I'm not going to get hurt skiing. I should knock on stuff. That's a terrible thing to say, but I've skied enough
but you like
in my
speed
life
and yeah.
I know it. I can ski really fast. I spent my life skiing. I'm a way better skier than I am a paraglider. Mm-hmm. But, I just decided when I went over the handlebars and broke my shoulder to bits, I don't want to get hurt anymore. I'm too old for this.
Yeah.
And I'm leaving that one. I just had to kind of write that one off.
Yeah.
But without doing that, I don't know. It's hard, especially in our sport. We talk about intermediate syndrome over and over and over again. It's hard to get better without screwing it up.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I totally understand your point, and I also, for example, I said, okay, I'm never gonna do my motorbike license because I think it's too fast and too dangerous, and so if I don't have the license, then I'm not taking the risk. The problem with paragliding is that it's not even an addiction, but it's our life. Like, in a way, for me, it's been my life for 20 years. It's been the way I make money. Also, it's been who I am in a way, all my friends, my best friends, all those adventures, the access to the world. For me, it's paragliding. And I have to say, like, in a way, I didn't miss it. Like, it's weird. I kind of, I've not that I had enough because I love flying, but for the last month, I was not like, the first thing I think about is maybe not going back to flying, I just want to walk and go swimming and go maybe. But what I know is that as soon as I will go back into it, I will realize, oh, that feels good, and I wrote somewhere on the paper the few things that are my goals, One of the goals was to be at this Red Bull X-Alps and trying to recover for that, which is, I think, a bit difficult, but if it's not this one, it's going to be in 2 years. But to do one more Red Bull X-Alps at least for, the 10th time, it's going to be my 10th Red Bull X-Alps. I wrote that on a paper, and I wrote also on a paper that I wanted to fly a tandem with my son again, to fly with Jack. And I think that's, for me, that's super important. Like, it's some of the things I want to do, and I will go back into paragliding. I cannot stop paragliding, but in everything that we'll do, I will be extra careful. And I think that sometimes, especially as a pro athlete, for example, you get to a place where you need to do a demo. There's a big crowd, 3,000 people, they're waiting for you to do something. You have the pressure, a bit of pressure. Competing, it's the same, you have a bit of pressure. Big sponsors, big event, you have a bit of pressure. I used to put pressure on myself, for things like that. But now I think I'm just going to say, hey guys, I've been there. I've done many days in the hospital, I know what I can do and what I can't do, and I'm not going to take extra risk here. And if something happens, because something can always happen, we know it. Some of the best pilots in the world had accidents. We've lost Timeo last year, that was terrible. And he was probably one of the best of us. He was really a great pilot. We know it can happen, and we accept that. But let's try to limit the risk as much as we can.
Yeah. I think that it sounds like you're moving into your 40s, buddy.
Yeah, I am. And I'm, you know what? It's interesting because I had this discussion with the mental coach, we have a mental coach at the APC. He's a great guy at the Athlete Performance Center. Red Bull knows that, okay, you can train physically, but you should also train mentally, so we have that support. And I had a conversation with him, and it was about where I see myself in the future, and it was about risk taking. It was super interesting. And what I realize is that, yes, life is different phases,
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, hey, what if I didn't have kids? I could be totally free and travel the world and this. But then if you think about it, you're like, there are people that would like to have kids and cannot have kids, Or so the discussion went around this. And at the end of the day, what we realize is like, it's all about being grateful. You know, you went around the world on a sailboat. You've done that. And now it's another phase in your life. And now you have a kid and it's another phase in your life. And you're grateful for what you did in the past and you're grateful for what you do now. And maybe tomorrow it's another moment, and it's going to be different, but just enjoy the moment and be grateful. And it's just, we're going through phases in life. It's not the end of life. You would think in a world where being an athlete is between 20 and 35, you would think that close to your 40, this is done. But no, man, there's so much we can still do. And plus, paragliding is one of those sports where you can be really good at it at 45, 50, 55 years old. You can be a beast. You can be a master. Maybe you're not going to perform to the top level at the Red Bull-Alps, but you know what? I've done almost 10 Red Bull-Alps. That's okay. Been there, done that. And you too, man. We've done a lot, and it's cool. Like, hey, let's bring the next generation, and let's help them to do things and to push the boundaries. And I'm not going to say we're too old for this shit, but in a way, it's fine. I want to see my kids grow. There are some things that are more important than hurt myself or kill myself flying and breaking records or things like that. So right now, that's where I am. I still want to give some things to the sport. I still want to be there. I still want to fly, but also I realize that you can do amazing things without taking a lot of risk. You can enjoy yourself flying in places without having to be the most extreme, flights, and really enjoy it. Sometimes I enjoy a flight, as I said, with my kids on the beach, like soaring sights, and I'm having the best time of my life. So it's just
We've talked
maybe we
about
should
this a
change the
lot
perspective.
on the show too.
Mhm.
The whole X contest factor. You mentioned Timo, one of the best pilots ever, really, but I went to a therapist many years ago. I was dealing with something outside of paragliding totally. And he said something that has sat with me for a long time, that in this town where I live, there's a lot of really high end athletes, it'd be like Jackson Hole or something. Interlaken, a place like this where, there's a lot of people pushing it really hard and a lot of ex-US ski team and ex-Olympians and this kind of thing. And he said, I have a lot of these people as clients. And I was kind of surprised. Really? And he said, yeah, because there's one of two ways that most of these people go in my experience: drugs and alcohol or death. And often that one leads to the second. And I was really surprised to hear that. And he said, yeah, because their being who they are has become the huckster. They chase speed their whole life, or they chase risk, and it's like the whole base jumping, wingsuiting conundrum, right?
Yeah.
Where do you get the next bit of adrenaline? You get a little bit closer to the terrain. And you can only get so close when a little mistake is, you don't have there's no cushion, there's no margin. We've erased the margin to zero, right? And so he said that, but as you get older, obviously you're not as good at it, and that dries up. And so you either keep chasing it like that until you huck something that you don't manage, you've reduced the margin to minus, or you bury yourself in other, you try to avoid it, like we were talking about with my friend or with your accident. The easy way out is just to avoid it, and often that's drugs and alcohol. And it was really interesting for me to hear that. This was quite a long time ago. This is 15 years ago, but it was a real kind of a wake up call to me, in a sense that, yeah, at some point here, you're going to have to shift the lens here. At some point here, you're going to have to make a different, kids for us help that, obviously, because you can start shifting your perspective. But
an
I don't know what my
accident can
question is
help
here, but
too.
it's
No, I get your point. Like, I think what's interesting is I think we're all different, and I see that a lot in pro athletes also, that they are some kind of monomaniacs, you know?
yeah.
They wake up in the morning and they breathe paragliding, they eat paragliding, they sleep paragliding. There's like paragliding everywhere. Somehow I've never been one of them, you know? Like, I'm not saying I'm a balanced, well balanced guy. I'm probably also some kind of psychopath, but I'm just trying to say that, you know, I have lots of interest in many different things. I love fly fishing and free diving and sailing and mountaineering and skiing and friends and family and having a big party, and I really enjoy life, you know, and paragliding is just a small part of my life.
Mm.
When for many top athletes, it becomes an obsession, you
Yeah.
know, and it's obsessions are never good. You know, I always say you shouldn't go too much into extreme, and this is sad that we call paragliding sometimes we call it extreme sport, which I'm not sure it is really an extreme sport. It really depends on how you practice it, but I really think that, you know, for me, like I almost shifted already with sailing, with adventures, with documentary making, with other things. So, and I think that's interesting because we should all be curious because there are so many things to discover in life. There's not only paragliding, you know,
Yeah.
or not only skiing or mountain biking or and I think that's very do we say liberating, you know, like you can free yourself from an addiction
Mm.
or a super strong passion. I think it's like when you are in love, you know, you can be in love, but you shouldn't be madly in love, you know, in a way you should kind of try to keep control in a way, you know, to not lose yourself on the way. And so I think that's a very, in a way, it's a deep conversation. It's interesting to have it with you because I think we are in the same place in life. Like we are thinking about, okay, what is the next step for us? And we've always been defined by what we do.
Mhm.
He's the Red Bull athlete. He's the pro skier. He's the paragliding guy. You know, he's the guy who wrote that book. And then you become that person, and you think that's the only thing you are.
Yeah.
But this is not the only thing we are. You know, we are also parents and beekeepers and whatever what, you know. And I think we have all of us. We have a lot of resources, and we can go any direction, and we're ready to shift at any time. And it's just about listening to the inner voice that says, "Hey, this is where I am now, and this is what I want to do, but maybe tomorrow I'm going to go somewhere else and do something else."
Mm.
And this is fine. And we
Yeah.
should encourage it. Now, having said that, if you make a living out of paragliding and this is your income, well, then you should start about shifting a little bit there too. You know, maybe investing on some real estate or starting a veggie garden and sell some fruits and, you know, like whatever it is, but try to be to be smart enough
Diversify.
so that you don't get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the rule of investing, right? You want to diversify. I think we have to diversify when we rely on our bodies. They're not always going to be reliable.
No, but there's so much that we learn also in those years of adventures and stuff. Like, you know, you're still a boat captain. You can also live a life of a pretty much a minimalist because you know what it is to sleep outside for days. You know, we have resources that we can use. Look at you. You have a podcast. You started a super cool competition in the US. You know, you have your community following you. You know, so I think this is inspiring in a way. But it's you shouldn't wait for the time to catch up on you. You know, you should
Yeah.
be proactive. You shouldn't wake up one morning and say, "Oh shit, this is done. The coach doesn't want me in the team anymore, and now what do I do?" No, you should prepare for this. And but if you look at
I mean,
paragliding, for example, yeah,
just
no,
saying we
sorry.
could muck it up like you did. You know, I mean,
Hmm?
you had all the history, you had all the lessons. You knew if there's doubt, there is no doubt, and sometimes things go sideways. You know, you're just having
And this
fun,
is
trying to
life.
learn a new sport, and boom.
Yeah, but maybe tomorrow I wake up and I have another health issue, you know,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
who know,
fair enough.
and you know, like this is one of the things that really um, strikes me when I was in the hospital bed looking at the ceiling, you know, and getting bored. And I remember the clock was ticking, you know, like all day long, tick It's like bored us, but it's horrible. Sorry. And then I was like, oh man, what would I do with all those minutes? If I was outside, I would enjoy life as much as I can. I was really thinking, oh, I would go for a run, and then I will prepare a milkshake, and then I will do this and that. And it makes you, I'm starving, I'm starving for life now.
Yeah.
And as soon as I can walk again properly, and I will really, if there's one thing that I learned, is that we have to enjoy every moment because time flies. I mean, it was yesterday that I did my first Red Bull X-Alps at 21 years old. It really feels like yesterday. And it feels, I feel old when I say that, because, you always hear your fathers or parents saying, hey, time flies. And it was yesterday that you were a kid and stuff, like a child and stuff. But this is true, literally. Like the time goes really fast, especially if you have a busy life and if you enjoy it. It goes really fast. So we should better make the best out of it.
That accelerator you really hit the gas too when you have kids. Holy shit!
Mm-hmm.
I mean, life went really fast before I had a kid, and now that I have a kid, it's just you watch them and you go. Hey, she said the other day, I just want to be 8. I just, listen, kiddo, enjoy it. You'll be 8 in no time.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Especially the beauty of it is that with kids, you go back through your childhood. Yeah. I had this discussion with, who was it? Someone from the X-Alps who told me, hey, you'll see your kids grow and you will go back to your childhood, and you go back through all those phases, and this is true. I look at my kids and I'm like, oh, I used to think like this, or I used to do exactly the same, or you start remembering and stuff. And this is super fun to go back through this, and also quite interesting to see. Obviously, times have changed, and how we deal with kids and how our parents used to deal with us, and how we try to do things differently, and how open-minded we are, and we're trying to do the right thing. And I think parents are doing, like, obviously their best, but I really think they're doing a great job. This is kind of a new generation of kids raised differently, with a different way of life, different mindsets than before. I think this is going to be really interesting to see them grow.
Yeah. It's a challenging time too, though, with social media and screens. And God, I think in a sense, our parents, in some ways, had it easier. They could just,
it's horrible.
It's easier to let them free roam. I mean, you're out in the Azores. That's a pretty good place to let them free roam. And so, and we're very fortunate where we are here. I just look. I mean, she can just do whatever she wants and just go outside. And really, what she's got to worry about is cougars and bears where I live, and wolves.
I hope, I really hope that by the time they're, 12 or 14 or going into, being teenagers and stuff, that the whole community understands how bad it is, social media and the impact of screens on their life and stuff, I think we're going to be lucky enough so that by the time they're big enough to have a cell phone, maybe we know more about the risk and the problems and the troubles that it creates. And then maybe we will save this generation, because this is a nightmare, man.
Yeah. We're training Fallon. Whenever she sees, mom or dad with a phone, that's bad. You're right. You're right. We're not allowed to have them in front of her anywhere. It's great.
Yeah, same here. Like at my place, we don't allow screen during the week, and they can watch a cartoon Saturday and one cartoon Sunday. That's it. And they watch it in English, so they learn another language. And since the very beginning, it was like this. The rule is super clear. No screen during the week, and that's it. They never ask for it during the week because they know that's it. It's that.
That's great.
But the problem is we should, and I'm not saying that everyone should do like this. Everyone does what he wants. Parents can decide for their kids. But I think as a community, we should all agree on something.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I mean, we're maybe out of the topic now, but when they're going to turn 13 or 14, they'll say, hey, everyone in class has a cell phone. I also need one. But if all the parents would agree on saying, hey, guys, no cell phone, no one has a cell phone, then no one will complain,
Yeah.
The problem is, like, Yeah.
It's the peer pressure, right? We're right back to what
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
started with.
Peer
It's
pressure.
peer pressure is a big one. I mean, there's a big movement here. My wife's a part of it to, wait till graduate, and not eighth grade, but high school, and
Beautiful.
get all the way through. And there's so much, oh, what it's a safety thing. We didn't have any of that. It's not a safety thing. It's fine.
They're gonna
We
be
don't
fine.
need it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, same here. We're really against it, and even I know, like, I'm not the best example. Sometimes I'm watching my phone or this or that. We should be very careful with what we do because they're watching us and they're copying us. But yeah, it's a challenging time. This is also why I kind of moved to the Azores. Like, and
Mm.
I think that's also why you're in the mountains. It's like we can offer them something that is slowly but sadly disappearing, a life in nature, playing outside and, being outdoor enthusiast. I love to be outside all the time. And my kids, they go to swim in the sea almost every day. They get to see dolphins and whales. They go free diving. They go spearfishing, fishing, whatever, and I think this is what life is all about. It's not behind a screen. So I think now there are amazing things happening behind screens. We can learn a lot with AI now. This is a revolution. Things are going to change quite drastically in the next 5 years, I think. So we should stay informed and stay tuned. But at the end, life is out there in the mountains and in nature, and that's where we should take them. And this is sad sometimes to see like the other day I was giving a speech. I went to a classroom of 12 years old kids. It was not the other day, it was like a year and a half ago. And we had a conversation, and one of the kids asked me at the end. He said, "Hey, how do you do to get passionate about something? Like, how do you find your passion?" And in a way, I was surprised. I was like, "Guys, you're kids, you should be curious, you should be trying things, you should be, excited about life and stuff." But it kind of felt like I was telling them about paragliding and my passion for flying and stuff, and they didn't really.
Wow.
Yeah, they looked at me, but if you gave them the choice, hey, you can go flying with me this afternoon, or get on your cell phone and watch a YouTube thing, whatever on YouTube, they would probably have chosen YouTube, in that classroom, and that depressed me. Like, I was like, oh, this is not where we want to go. We want to push those kids to go and discover and explore, and so, yeah, I think we have a responsibility
We
to
do,
take
for
them with
sure.
us. And you said that life changes when we have kids, and this is true. It really does. But, and you're doing the same. We took Jack on the crossing of the Atlantic when he was 11 months old, and we crossed the Atlantic with him. And we decided that we were not going to change our lifestyle because a kid was coming. And obviously, we did change it. We had to adapt. It was different, but still, what they want is to have happy parents, and that's what matters the most. They want to see you happy, and you want to inspire them to follow their dreams and to do their thing and to find their passion. So, all in all, I think we shouldn't stop doing what we do, and
Yeah,
we
I
should
think
try to
I
inspire
think
them.
that's super important. Jeff Shapiro talked about that in one of his podcasts. I've had him on the show a few times. That we talk about risk because he's done a lot of base jumping and a lot of wingsuiting and
Hmm.
lost a lot of friends. And so this question is an
Yeah.
obvious one. What about your kids? And he said, yeah, but without this, I'm not who I am. And they need
Hmm.
to, we need to instill them with the passion. And this is what makes me passionate about life. And, I think there's really something to that. I think, like you said, we got to start thinking more about margin.
Yeah. And we have to change the culture. And this is really difficult. But, I think we are on the wrong path in a way. For example, with paragliding and the XA contest, people are looking at numbers, all the time. Like, who did the fastest triangle, the longest flight, the highest altitude? And I'm part of the problem, I have to say. Like, when we try to break records and we give credit to that,
Mm-hmm.
this is interesting, but we don't talk enough about how much preparation it requires. And at the end of the day, is it really so important? And I know we had this conversation before, about ego and stuff. We should leave the ego trip behind and say, you know what? It doesn't matter. Flying is about having fun with your friends, enjoying your time up there. But there is way too much ego. When you get on a takeoff and everyone flies and it feels like a race. You're looking at your friend, he looks at you, who is climbing better, oh I was higher, I was this, I was that. This is ridiculous when you think about it. Really, it is. But this is our human nature, we always compare ourselves and we compete and we do this and who is the winner and the first and the second and the third and who was on the podium. Okay, great, fine. But is it really important at the end of the day? Probably not. Really, when you think about it, it's not.
It's not.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, who gives a shit?
No. And you know what? Like, I'm a professional paragliding pilot, but I cannot tell you who was on the podium last year at the whatever competition,
Right.
and this is my job. It's just because, why is that? Because I don't think it's so important. And I really think that we should, be a little bit easier on each other, and encourage a different type of culture where we talk about enjoying nature, respecting the environment, being there with friends, flying to our own level, accepting that, this is fine. You don't fly your D-glider. This is cool, man. No worries. We should really, and us, we have probably you and I, we have a little bit of a responsibility here because some people listen to what we say, or the paragliding magazines or the paragliding federations. We have to change the culture altogether. I really think we do, and it will go through, accepting that ego is bullshit, and we should step aside sometime and just leave it aside and say, hey, you know what? Let's focus on what's important. And let's celebrate someone that says,
this is a metaphor
hey,
for life, right? That's life. And it is hard to park the human nature in who we are. And there's so many things, social media, X-Content, all these things that exacerbate that chase. And that's what the therapist said when I sat down with him all those years ago. You keep chasing, you're gonna end up on the wrong side of the coin, So we must learn how to set that stuff aside. It's hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard, and I don't know. Let's see what happens next. But I wanna grow old. Like I don't want another accident. Really.
Yeah, exactly. The end game should be to become a cool old granddad and have some fun stories and have lived a very, very rich life that you can share, right? And so, what
totally.
You've been through, I think, is, like I said, it's not a cheap mistake, but it's we need these resets of perspective, and it's just the same as when you get really sick. I always feel like when I get a really bad flu or something, it's my body telling me that, dude, you're going too hard. So the only way I can slow you down is to get sick. You need some time in bed. You gotta relax, man. So I think, well, you've had a hell of a journey, buddy. I appreciate your perspective and God, your patience in a sense. And I know you've been through the ringer, and I'm sure there's been some pretty dark days, but thanks for sharing it all with us.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been through difficult times, and I'm happy to share it with you and with sometimes I feel that it was not for nothing if I can share about it and people can hear it and maybe it can help someone somewhere. And I always, when I hear, because I have to analyze some of the accidents, I do it with the paragliding federation, and sometimes I get in contact with the guys who had accidents and stuff, and if I can help, I'm happy to help. So if anyone goes through really difficult time now or had an accident or need some support to get out of the forest, as I like to say, to see the light at the end of the tunnel, they can just contact me on Instagram or whatever. I'm always happy to help. So
Thanks, Tom.
just shoot. And again, there's after the rain comes the sun. So let's all stay positive, and life is a beautiful thing. There's still a lot to do, and it's only going to get better from here.
Tom, you're a gem, man. Appreciate you. The community appreciates you. Can't wait to see you at the X-Alps. keep fighting for it, man. And
we'll be in the Alps together. That I'm sure. Like if it's in the race or outside the race, but we'll spend time together there, and maybe we chat a bit more around the beer and talk about life and the good old times. and yeah, but it's gonna be cool to see you, man. I missed you and the guys in the Red Bull family, the Red Bull X-Alps family and stuff. So it's gonna be really cool to be there all together. I'm looking forward.
Absolutely. See you soon.
You take care, and you send a big hug to the family.
You as
and
well.
Keep on inspiring us with the podcast and with everything you do.
Thanks, man. You too, buddy.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.